Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. Now today is Tumblr Tuesday. I feel like I should tumble when I say that like I'm in a gymnastics class or something. Okay, so before I get into Tumblr land, I wanted to let you all know, drum roll, that the website is up, the new website, yay! And I know that many of you have been asking for this and hoping for this, and thank you so much for being patient. The last website, it's funny because I remember searching through all the website types and thinking that one would be perfect because we can share love and give people little extra hearts on their blog posts, but then it just got really difficult because how do we ask simple questions? And we always have a little question, and then how quickly can we get back to one another, and blah, 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 right? And it was a lot for me to read through and make sure there was nothing triggering, and to approve all those blog posts and set pictures to them and yada, 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 right? So the new website is up, and there are forums, and it's actually, I'm looking at my computer over here. It's actually a social network site now where you can friend people and follow people, and you can update your profile and answer these funny questions I put in, like what are your favorite hobbies and things like that, favorite colors, and I don't even know what all I put in there. I forget, like chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, what favorite flavor. So you can kind of create your own profile, and it'll tell you like how much of that is done, and it's really exciting. So if you haven't hopped on my website, katimorton.com, you can check it out. And I have opened up the forums. I am not looking through all of it and approving the forums because I want you to have support 24/7. And I am not awake 24/7 because then I'd be like a zombie. So I've opened it up. However, the same rules still apply. And I will check the forums very frequently. And if you find any triggering information, let somebody know. Just say, hey, we don't use numbers on here, or hey, we don't talk like that on this website, blah, blah, blah. Or if you want to leave it up to me, you can let me know. And I would be happy to message them and let them know the rules of the website, because I want to keep it a safe and supportive environment like it's been. In no way will this ever become a unhealthy behavior website, okay? So even though I've opened it up, the same rules apply. So don't break the rules, okay? And let me see if there's anything else. So yeah, I think that's really it. And give me your feedback. Let me know if something's not quite working, or if you like the way that this is, or, I'm always looking for feedback because I'm just getting into this website in the back end and trying different things out. So I'm always welcoming the feedback, okay? And on to Tumblr land. Oh, and I got my nails painted today, you see? I was really excited. I was like, I love purple. Yay. So, okay. Now these are, and before I forget, actually, on the website, you can still blog. I know many of you have been like, Katie, where'd the blog option go? And in the forums, you'll find my explanation for how you can still blog. So if you still want to do that, there's a forum about it so you can read. And if you have any questions about it or struggles, you can hit me up on Twitter, okay? Now the first question is, what's the difference between a setback and a relapse? Now, I'm assuming this would differ from person to person because it's really just a definition thing. But a setback would be like, it was my birthday and I had 2 parties to go to, and so I felt like I binged, and so I purged, and I'm feeling really guilty. But then we get back up the next day and we get back on track. That would be like a setback or a slip up, or however many other kinds of words we could use to describe that, right? And then a relapse would be when we go back to the way it used to be. Which we all have felt this. They call it, like if you look up the definition, I think it says something like backsliding or getting back. They talk about it medically, so when the symptoms come back full force. And I think that applies for eating disorder, self-harm, depression, anxiety, if we go back to the way it was before we got help. So if we are binging and purging, X amount of times a day again, or we are exercising X amount, or we're sitting in bed all day and not getting out, or we're finding ourselves overly anxious in public and therefore not meeting up with our friends, etc. Does that make sense? So it's kind of going all the way back. And then the next part, so that was one person's question on Tumblr. And then the next question is, how do we get through a relapse? So that was another one, but I decided to mush it together. And just like what I said a relapse is going back to the way it used to be. We have to go back to when we first started to recover and use those same tools, because all the work we've done, sorry, I have an itch. All the work we've done isn't lost. It's not lost. It's still there. We just have to get back on track, use our tools, maybe start on my workbook again, task 1, which I know you all hate, but get back on there, okay? And start doing that again, because the same things that helped us before can help us now. And I know it's annoying, and we're like, I've already done it. It's almost like redoing kindergarten or something, and we're like, we've already learned this, but we have to go back, okay? Question number 2. This person, and I don't know if I want to, I'm not going to share anybody's name, because on Tumblr it's usually anonymous, or they really want me to keep their privacy, but this person's therapist was wanting them to give up their scale and to give it to a friend. And they're feeling really anxious about it, obviously, because a lot of us focus on the numbers and weight and all this calorie in, right? Our eating disorder loves that stuff. And she's feeling really anxious, and so she wondered about my thoughts on that. And I think giving it to a friend is a great idea. A lot of times I'll take it from my client for a week and give it back, or give them the option to take it back. So I think that it's a great idea. I know that it's really anxiety provoking. I would encourage you to journal about it a little bit and see why you're feeling so anxious, and what does it mean to not be weighed, and what are you afraid is going to happen? I can pretty much guess what it is, but sometimes it helps for us to write it out and then to say, well, what if we could get it back anytime? Like, what if you gave it to your therapist and they said, just let me know if you want it back. I'll put it in a bag in the waiting room and you can come get it. Then how would it feel? And maybe you should, before giving it to a friend, maybe we should just try not weighing ourselves for one day or one afternoon. Depends on how often you weigh yourself, and we'll start like weaning off, So those are my thoughts on that. Your therapist is doing a great job, because that's something that I always encourage, some kind of version of that, okay? Number 3, someone wanted to know the process of giving a diagnosis. Now, this probably differs from therapist to therapist, but I'll just tell you mine. I'm going to see you the first time, and I'm going to ask a lot of questions about your history and where you've been before, and if there's another therapist that I should talk to, and, I get you to sign a release if that's the case. I'll ask you about medical conditions and things you struggled with physically that you had to go to the hospital for. I'll ask you about medications, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And through the course of spending time with you and having other sessions, I'll ask you about your behaviors, like how many times do you feel depressed, or how many times you binge and purge, or how many times do you cut yourself in a day or a week or a month, and I'll just start asking questions about that. And I probably see my clients 4 times. I mean, I'm just giving you a rough estimate, unless there's some reason that we need to make a diagnosis quicker. I usually will see them for about a month before I feel confident enough to give them a diagnosis. And then I usually will jot in my notes what I'm ruling out, like to rule out major depressive disorder or bulimia or binge eating disorder, whatever it is I'm looking at, borderline personality disorder. And then I'll start weeding them out. So like, doesn't quite meet criteria for this, is more apt to meet that. And so that's how I do it. So think of it as like a funnel. Like, I'm taking all this information and I'm getting it down to what I think is actually the struggle and the issue. But in the meantime, I'm also creating a treatment plan based on all of those possibilities. So I think I like doing that because it gives a more well-rounded treatment plan. So it's not just one thing that we're focusing on, because it's usually, even if it is one diagnosis, we have a lot of stuff going on, So that's just a little snippet about how that works. Okay, on to number 4. What do you do if someone threatens to kill themselves if you tell their parents? And I know that this comes from someone on Twitter who's also on my website, and I don't know if she wants me to say her name, so I won't, but she's been waiting very patiently for this question. So I get this, not a lot, but pretty frequently, where people will be like, I'm just going to get worse if you tell them, or things are just going to get, I might just have to kill myself, or I might not come to see you anymore, or any kind of threat, I guess. That happens a lot. And usually what I do is I talk to them about that. I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to push your boundaries and tell your parents if you feel so strongly that they can't know. However, if you are under 18 and they're part of your treatment, then we would have had this conversation when you first came in, where I would say, if I was really worried about you, I'm going to have to tell your parents. And you would say, I understand. And we would talk about that and what that means and what I'm really worried about you means, etc. But if we've already had that discussion and now you're saying this, then we would talk about it and I would have you journal. And I wouldn't do it I wouldn't tell your parents right away. I would just ask you questions about what is it that you're so concerned that they'll say or do, and what are ways that we can better express it to them? What are things that you'd be okay with me saying? I say that a lot with my clients. What is it you're okay with me saying? What are you not okay with me saying? And how can we get them to know you need more support without you feeling like I violated your privacy? And so we have to kind of reach an agreement. If they are adamant about wanting to commit suicide, if you tell their parents, usually I'll recommend that they go to the hospital, because if they're that suicidal, then I have a bigger concern on my hands, right? So that's how I do it, and take it slow and talk it out, ask a lot of questions, make sure they feel comfortable. I can even have them write out in a journal entry 1 week where they tell me what I can say and why that's all they want me to say. And then I'll even offer just to read exactly what they said I could say to their parents. And we'll kind of meet in the middle. So I hope that answers your question. I almost just said your name. Okay, number 5, how to deal with anxiety around going to therapy. Now, and this is from Jess, who's on my website and on Twitter and everything. And I know that you've been waiting forever, Jess, to see somebody, like, sweet mother of God. They've made you wait a gazillion years. And so we get really anxious, right? And it's actually more about the buildup sometimes. Even if we haven't been waiting forever to get placed, if we're not in the UK and have that crazy system, sometimes we just build it up in our minds. And I think the best thing to do if we're feeling overly anxious and we don't have control over when we see someone is every time it comes up into our mind, if we're like, oh, a therapy, but how am I going to get everything out? And we start spinning, right? And we can't get anywhere. It's not really helping. I would encourage you, when you find yourself doing this, do thought blocking, we call it, where you're like, no, I'm not going to think about that. So let's say that thought comes in where, what about this therapist? I heard a therapist got hired. Maybe I'll be placed soon. Blah, blah, blah. Immediately when you have that thought, think to yourself, I'm going to think about something else. You know what I'm going to think about? I'm going to think about how I have choir tonight, and that'll be exciting. I wonder what songs we'll sing, and I wonder what's on TV later. Maybe later I might have to go, to the pharmacy and get some more Band-Aids because I'm out of whatever. Think of something, anything. I should clean the house later, blah, blah, blah. Start forcing your mind away from it, because if we don't, the anxiety just builds and builds and builds. And then it's just overwhelming, right? So that would be my best tip for that, okay? Last question. This is from Tumblr. One of my followers is struggling with getting over a fear of abandonment, because when she suffers with BPD, borderline personality disorder, and so we know, if any of you haven't watched my borderline video, I would hop on my channel and search borderline personality disorder, and that video will come up. But in there I talk about how people who suffer from that have a big fear of abandonment. And so a lot of times we'll either smother people. We get overly close and forceful about spending time with them, and that can scare them off, or we disconnect and push back and blah. And so how do we get over that? And the truth of it is spending time on yourself, thinking about what that means, thinking about what your firmly held beliefs are about abandonment, who's left you, why they left you, what kind of relationships do you have? We have to get to the core of it. And I would honestly encourage you to watch my BPD video, because I give a lot of tips and tricks in there. So that video will really give you the most help. And I also have a workbook that I recommend for DBT. And DBT therapy is so immensely helpful with stuff like this, because instead of letting our emotions run us over where we end up feeling suicidal because people are going to leave us, we can pedal it back and think, yeah, I am worried they'll leave. Why am I worried? Because I really care about them. And have they left me before? Well, no. We're pretty good friends. And could I communicate to them to let them know I need a little extra support? Maybe I could. And, it'll slow that process down. So check out that video and check out that workbook. And that is it for today. Hooray! So it's already Tuesday. Weeks are going by so quickly, and my wedding is coming up. Everything is pretty much finished. I did the seating arrangement, which actually turned out to be a lot more work, but it was easy to get everybody. Once I had the rough structure of it, it was easy to fill them in, but I was kind of worried about that and trying to think of what else there is to do. I have my bachelorette party coming up, and we're not going to go to Vegas or anything because that's just not my style. It's kind of freaking me out even thinking about it. But yeah, everything is getting really exciting and we're getting close, and I just can't wait. All is built up, and now I can finally be excited because most of the planning is done. So thank you all for all your kind words. I love getting your messages and your sweet, I was going to rhyme, sweet tweets. Huh, I'm a poet. But yeah, I love all the support and everything. It means the world to me, and I hope you all have a great week. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.